To be sure, alienation is not the sole characteristic of art. An analysis and even a statement of the problem is outside the scope of this work, but some suggestions may be offered for clarification. Throughout whole periods of civilization, art appears to be entirely integrated into its society. Egyptian, Greek, and Gothic art are familiar examples. Bach and Mozart are usually also cited as testifying to the positive side of art. The place of the work of art in a pre-technological and two-dimensional culture is very different from that in a one-dimensional civilization, but alienation characterizes affirmative as well as negative art. The decisive distinction is not the psychological one between art created in joy and art created in sorrow, between sanity and neurosis, but that between the artistic and the societal reality. The rupture with the latter, the magical or rational transgression, is an essential quality of even the most affirmative art. It is alienated also from the very public to which it is addressed. No matter how close and familiar the temple or cathedral were to the people who lived around them, they remained in terrifying or elevating contrast to the daily life of the slave, the peasant, and the artisan, and perhaps even to that of their masters. Whether ritualized or not, art contains the rationality of negation. In its advanced positions, it is the great refusal, the protest against that which is. The modes in which man and things are made to appear, to sing and sound and speak, are modes of refuting, breaking, and recreating their factual existence, but these modes of negation pay tribute to the antagonistic society to which they are linked. Separated from the sphere of labor where society reproduces itself and its misery, the world of art which they create remains, with all its truth, a privilege and an illusion. In this form, it continues. In spite of all democratization and popularization, through the 19th and into the 20th century, the high culture in which this alienation is celebrated has its own rights and its own style. The salon, the concert, opera, theater are designed to create and invoke another dimension of reality. Their attendance requires festive-like preparation. They cut off and transcend everyday experience. Now, this essential gap between the arts and the order of the day, kept open in the artistic alienation, is progressively closed by the advancing technological society. And with its closing, the great refusal is in turn refused. The other dimension is absorbed into the prevailing state of affairs. The works of alienation are themselves incorporated into the society and circulate as part and parcel of the equipment which adorns and psychoanalyzes the prevailing state of affairs. Thus they become commercials. They sell, comfort, or excite. The neoconservative critics of leftist critics of mass culture ridicule the protest against Bach as background music in the kitchen, against Plato and Hegel, Shelley and Baudelaire, Marx and Freud in the drugstore. Instead, they insist on recognition of the fact that the classics have left the mausoleum and come to life again, that people are just so much more educated. True, but coming to life as classics, they come to life as other than themselves. They are deprived of their antagonistic force, of the estrangement which was the very dimension of their truth. The intent and function of these works would have thus fundamentally changed. If they once stood in contradiction to the status quo, this contradiction is now flattened out. But such assimilation is historically premature. It establishes cultural equality while preserving domination. Society is eliminating the prerogatives and privileges of feudal aristocratic culture together with its content. The fact that the transcending truths of the fine arts, the aesthetics of life and thought, were accessible only to the few wealthy and educated was the fault of a repressive society, but this fault is not corrected by paperbacks, general education, long-playing records, and the abolition of formal dress in the theater and concert hall. The cultural privileges expressed the injustice of freedom, the contradiction between ideology and reality, the separation of intellectual from material productivity, but they also provided a protected realm in which the tabooed truths could survive in abstract integrity, remote from the society which suppressed them. Now this remoteness has been removed, and with it the transgression and the indictment. The text and the tone are still there, but the distance is conquered which made them Luft von anderen Planeten. The artistic alienation has become as functional as the architecture of the new theaters and concert halls in which it is performed, and here too the rational and the evil are inseparable. Unquestionably, the new architecture is better. That is, more beautiful and more practical than the monstrosities of the Victorian era, but it is also more integrated. Quote unquote. The cultural center is becoming a fitting part of the shopping center, or municipal center, or government center. Domination has its own aesthetics, and democratic domination has its democratic aesthetics. It is good that almost everyone can now have the fine arts at his fingertips by just turning a knob on his set, or by just stepping into his drugstore. In this diffusion, however, they become cogs in a culture machine which remakes their content.